I consider this to be one of the most iconic places in Atlanta. This is Centennial Olympic Park. The fountains are behind me, the Olympic rings, and the skyline. You may have been to Centennial Olympic Park before, but I think I'm going to tell you two stories you may not know as much about. First, we're going to go to a sculpture that was put here back in 1996. And then I'm going to show you a brick that has a kind of amazing story. So come on. There are monuments, statues, and sculptures all over Centennial Olympic Park, and leaf blowers, at least right now. But I'm brought you to this particular sculpture. It's called Tribute. It's made of bronze, and it has three figures. One representing the ancient Olympic Games, the second representing the first of the modern Olympic Games, and then the third representing the Centennial Olympic Games in 1996, right here in Atlanta. Also, the stones at the base of the monument are a gift from the people of Olympia, Greece, to the people of Atlanta. So lots of connections to the Olympic Games. And I love the idea that the monument is called Tribute, because it turns out it's a tribute to more than just the Olympic Games. One of the most famous things that happened during the Atlanta Olympics, of course, is the tragic bombing. One person was killed. There was one person who died of a heart attack, and over 100 other people were injured. What happened was late that night, in July of 1996, about 1 a.m., a man named Eric Rudolph came into Centennial Olympic Park and placed a backpack that he had packed full of gunpowder and nails. Then he called in a tip to the police saying, "There's a bomb in Centennial Olympic Park, you have 30 minutes. Luckily, a security guard named Richard Jewell saw the backpack, thought it looked a little funny, and then decided that he was going to clear the area. And he got it almost cleared when the bomb exploded. It was a giant concussion that almost pushed people back off their feet. At least that's how they described it. And it happened right near where we're standing. In fact, some of those nails, the shrapnel from that bomb, hit the Tribute statue. And you can even see a small imprint of a nail here, and here, and here, and here. And so in some ways, the Tribute statue is now a tribute to the people who lost their lives and who were injured, and who were really frightened during the Olympic bombing. The other part of the story, which you may know about, is how Richard Jewell became a suspect, and then that snowballed in the media until his life was almost ruined. It wasn't until multiple years later, and several bombings later, that Eric Rudolph, the real Centennial Olympic Park bomber, was caught, brought to justice, and put in jail. So I hope that next time you visit Centennial Olympic Park, you'll come visit the Tribute statue and, well, think about the games, think about the history of the games, and also remember the tragedy that happened. There are over 500,000 bricks in the ground at Centennial Olympic Park, and every one has a different inscription. And I know it's around here for one in 500,000, right over here, that has the story that I want to tell you. Here it is. I love finding a brick in the middle of 500,000. It's like a big scavenger hunt. And this one has a fantastic story. But next time you're at Centennial Olympic Park, look at the bricks and see what you might see. I found one that has Carl Lewis, the famous Olympian's name on it. I even found one that says Sonia Jernigan has a fat head, whatever that means. But this one has a fantastic story. It says, "Liza, will you marry me? Love, VPM." So these bricks were being sold for $35 each as a way to fund the building of Centennial Olympic Park. And Vincent Mulkowski decided that he was going to buy one in order to propose to Liza Caceres, the woman that he was dating. So he paid the $35, and it took so long for the bricks to actually be installed in Centennial Olympic Park that the couple broke up. The brick was still laid, you know, as would happen. But luckily, A few years later, the couple got back together. And then, in the year 2000, 4 years after the Olympics, Vincent decided that he was going to take Liza out here and ask her to marry him. He brought her to this brick, had her read it, and her eyes grew wide. "How did you plan that?" she said. And when he told her the story, it made the moment even more romantic. Later, Liza actually purchased a brick for Vincent at their alma mater, Emory University, that says, "I do love Liza." What a story to find on this brick from almost 25 years ago in the middle of Centennial Olympic Park. I bet you'll find some cool stories if you just do a little searching. Now we're going to leave Centennial Olympic Park, and I'm going to take you to a site of the civil rights in Atlanta and another story that goes back even further. It's at the Atlanta University Center, the place where Clark Atlanta, Spelman, Morehouse all sit. So come on with me, and we'll get some more stories of famous things in Atlanta that you may not know about. Two of the most famous things about Atlanta are its historically black colleges and universities and the civil rights movement. So what are the secrets about these two things, and why am I standing in front of Clark Atlanta University just next to Morehouse College? Well, most people think of the civil rights movement as being all about Dr. Martin Luther King. And of course, he was important. But here in Atlanta, the old guard of black leadership said to the younger people, "Let's not make too many waves. Let's take our time in fighting for our rights here in our city." But the students at the Atlanta University Center said, "No, now is our time." And they began sit-ins and they began marches. And this is now today called the Atlanta Student Movement. And right here on the street that's called Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard, we have the Absalom Jones Episcopal Center for Racial Healing. And they have a story that I want to share with you now. So come on, let's go talk with Dr. Catherine Meeks, the director of the Absalom Jones Center. Dr. Meeks, thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to talk to you because today we're talking about things that are lesser known about the stuff that is famous in our city, and the Atlanta University Center is one of the most famous places. But the Absalom Jones Center for Racial Healing may not have the same level of fame, at least not with people who aren't students here. Absolutely. So thanks for having me here, and could you tell us what the purpose of this place is?
This center is a collaborative between the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta and the National Episcopal Church. And the goal that we have is to be a catalyst throughout the Episcopal communion for working on racial healing.
All right, so Absalom Jones Center for Racial Healing. Can you tell me who Absalom Jones was?
Well, Absalom Jones was the first African American to be ordained in the Episcopal Church. And it took 9 years because of racism. So having a center that's focused on dismantling racism and seeking racial healing named after him makes a whole lot of sense.
One of the first things that drew me here is the work that you've been doing on remembering people who were lynched. And so as I walked in, I saw the memorial that's out in the courtyard, but I really wanted to hear it from you where that work started and what your hope is for how that work touches the world.
Well, if you don't pay attention to all of the parts of your history, you don't stand a chance of ever being well. So we set about in 2015 to start thinking about remembering folks who were lynched. And we did a service in Macon that remembered 17 people and placed a small marker in front of the Douglas Theater. And then we went to Athens and we remembered 46 people and placed a marker at a Baptist church that has an old school that was there for black kids way back before integration. And then we wanted the third year to remember everybody who was lynched in Georgia. So there's 840 people on the names on the memorial that we have here in front of the building. However, we know that's not all of the folks who were lynched in Georgia. Those were the names we could find, and so that's who's on there.
I would love to get to visit with you all day, but I think I'm going to spend a moment of silence with the memorial and then and be on my way.
Well, and we want people to come and spend a moment of silence anytime they feel so moved, to pay attention every day when I drive up to work. I sit in my car and pay a moment of attention to this memorial because I think that's important.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I hope that more and more people coalesce around this movement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being here. Can I shake your hand?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty. It's sobering to see the names. It makes it more real, and I think connects us with them. I'm really glad that the Absalom Jones Center reads the names each year. And I hope you'll come visit this place. There are so many famous things in Atlanta that have stories that we just wouldn't know if we didn't ask the right people, like I was able to ask Dr. Meeks today. But I hope today you've seen some of the secrets of the famous sites and maybe can think about our city with a little bit more depth today. This is Jonah McDonald, and you've been watching Living History. I'll see you next time.